From Adversity to Abundance, hosted by entrepreneur and seasoned real estate investor Jamie Bateman, is the ultimate guide for active and passive investors seeking clarity, mental fitness, and the confidence to make inspired decisions in the world of real estate. With a decade plus of investing experience across various niches and a background as a combat veteran, former Army officer, and multi-million-dollar mortgage note company owner, Jamie brings a wealth of knowledge and inspiring stories to each episode. Through weekly episodes featuring insightful interviews with industry leaders and solo explorations of mindset and strategy, listeners will uncover actionable advice and tips to overcome challenges and build lasting financial success. Whether you're a seasoned investor or just starting, From Adversity to Abundance is your roadmap to turning obstacles into opportunities and achieving financial freedom.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the From Adversity to Abundance podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Bateman, and I'm thrilled today to have with us Marques Colston. Marques is a former standout wide receiver with the New Orleans Saints in the NFL and is a current business leader, and we're going to get into a lot more of the specifics there. Marques, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. The sun is shining. I'm vertical. There's a lot to be thankful for. I interviewed your one of your business partners, Nick Edwards, recently, and he said that although you were a phenomenal receiver in the NFL, that you're 10 times that as a person. So that's high praise. And I can tell you that I personally, I mentioned to you before we hit record, several of my fantasy teams over the years benefited from your NFL performance. So I've been looking forward to this episode. This is going to be a fun one. I could tell I don't know you well, of course, but just from observing that you have a humble confidence about you. So I'm excited to dive into some of the mindset stuff here. For those listeners who may not be familiar with you, Marques, who are you and what are you up to today?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. I'm somebody, I consider myself a lifelong learner. I have obviously my professional background as a player kind of precedes everything, but in the transition out of football, I've been just kind of immersed myself in a lot of different places, a lot of different roles, from adjunct professor to financial advisor, team owner, investor, consultant. And, that's really a function of that lifelong learning piece. I see something that's interesting. I explore it and, kind of let the curiosity lead me into my version and my way of doing things. So it's led me down a pretty diverse path and, still learning and still building as I go.
I love that. Yeah, lifelong learner. Before we get too far ahead, this is for a friend of mine. What's the most you ever bench pressed?
Man, that's going all the way back to my college days. I probably put up 330 or 340. I got long arms, man. So
it's a tough one. All right, we got that one out of the way. That was a fun one though. But so Marques, like I said, I've followed your career fairly closely over the years, and I know you were a seventh round pick, which for those who don't know is pretty late in the NFL draft. We're going to jump back even further than that, but just the fact that you were able to do so well in your NFL career it obviously speaks to your mindset and your, like you said, lifelong learning approach to things. We're not going to cover a lot of the stuff that people can Google and read on Wikipedia, but it's just an impressive, it's just so impressive to observe what you've done. So jump back before the draft. You before we hit record, you mentioned something about your college career and some adversity you faced there. Let's dive in there. What happened to you, and talk to us about your college career.
Yeah, so I'm one of those people that a lot of athletes end up redshirting, but most often it kind of happens in the beginning of your career. Most people redshirt as a freshman, and that's kind of their developmental year. For me, I finished up a really good junior campaign. Last game of the season, I broke the all-time single game record for my school. But I played most of that year with a messed up shoulder, and went and had surgery in the off season. Came back, wasn't quite ready in the spring, and Got to training camp of my senior year, and it just didn't feel right. And at that point, I knew something was up, and I kind of had to make a decision. Do I try to play this senior season with a bum shoulder, or do I, have this surgery and sit down and sit out my senior year, redshirt, and then come back the following year? And I chose the latter. And for me, that was the first time in my life from age 7 that I had to go without playing football. And to do it in a senior year where I was teed up, I was preseason All-American, ready to go out and have a great campaign, ready to go out and get ready for the draft and all those things. For that to happen at that moment was probably one of the tougher things that I had to deal with at that point, to that point in my life.
Sure.
And it kind of reset a lot of things for me mentally. A lot of things that I just kind of took for granted.
Sure.
The
Yeah.
fact that football would be there, the fact
Right.
that I'd be able to go to practice and be around my teammates, be around my colleagues, all those things.
Yep.
It was a really hard reset that year, sitting out and watching my guys play and
Hmm.
watching the class that I came in, watching them graduate, walk the stage, and I stayed behind.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
So it was a kind of a delineation point in my life and career that I didn't know at the time.
Sure. No. And I was a collegiate athlete as well, and also redshirted a year, and also dealt with some injuries. Not a season-ending injury like that, or the decision to sit out for a whole year. And certainly I didn't make it to the pros or anything like that. So not saying we're on the same level there, but I know what it's like to take a lot of those blessings for granted, and it starts to kind of shake your identity a little bit at that point. It's deeper than just a shoulder pain or something like that. So speak to like what's going through your mind at that point as far as deciding whether to sit out, and then when you did come back, talk to us about your senior year campaign.
Yeah, I mean, it was like I said, up until that point in my life, it was one of the tougher things that I had to deal with. I was teed up. The dream was right at the doorstep.
Mm.
Right, all I had to do was go out and you know compete at the same level as a
Do what
senior.
you'd already done before, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It kind of felt like that rug pull and that rug pull moment, and you just, as a 20-year-old, you just don't know what to do with that. That kind of
Yeah.
loss, like you mentioned, it's an identity loss.
Hmm.
So that kind of got the clock started for me in just realizing that you have to be somebody outside of just the athlete because it can be
Hmm.
gone fast.
That's so true.
And, that kind of started that thought process for me, and it made me, that whole season, I kind of had to sit. I couldn't travel to away games.
Mm.
We had some weird policies and stuff, so I couldn't be on the sideline during the
Mm.
games. So I was just kind of in this state of isolation, and I had to really figure out who I was in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
Uh,
Gotcha.
to have that happen at 20 years old,
Hmm.
it was a blessing in disguise, just because it got a clock started, and I had to start thinking outside of how I typically thought.
Hmm.
And in a lot of ways, that kind of laid the groundwork for just the mindset and the ability to not let the situation define who I was in any given time.
Mm. I love that. That's really, really good. So, like I said, we're not going to dive into all of the all your, accolades and everything during your NFL career, but talk to us briefly about sort of your heading into the draft
Mhm.
and what your mindset was, and then kind of walk us through your career as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, I was seventh round pick, fourth to the last pick in the draft, and again, just kind of back to that, the situation is one thing, but I can't let it define me, right?
Hmm.
So in my mind, I wasn't walking into training camp, I wasn't walking into mini camp as a seventh round pick. I
Hmm.
was walking in as somebody that was just there to compete for a starting job
Hmm.
and compete for an opportunity.
Hmm.
Had to wait a little bit longer than I wanted to for
Hmm.
the
During the
opportunity.
draft. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's all perspective. It's a lot of people put stock in that number. I was picked 252. Um, and if you're only looking at 252 out of 255, it doesn't sound very, very, very appealing.
Hmm.
But when you're able to zoom out and see this is 252 out of 10,000s,
Right.
so then it's a
It's
different
pretty impressive.
perspective,
Yeah.
right? So um, that entering the league in that way, my mindset was one that I'm going to compete. I'm going to compete. I'm going to do, what I need to do. I'm going to figure out how I can, get better at any given point.
Hmm.
And that was the mindset that I went in with. And, from the jump, from day one, I ended up playing in a position that I'd never played in before.
Hmm. So
So it's
you
it's
were a tight end before that?
so I played receiver in college, but we had this pretty, I'll call it a static offense, where I
Uh-huh.
literally, for 4 years in college, I played the left wide out. I
Okay.
never played in the slot. I never played on the right side of the field.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I played in one static position for 4 years, and I
Mm.
got to the highest level, and now I'm moving all over the field, and I have to learn these different nuances. And
Hmm.
again, it's the mindset. For a lot of people, they saw that as a knock,
Hmm.
but for me, I saw it differently. I didn't have a lot of bad habits that I had to unlearn
Mm.
before I could learn the real ones.
Sure. Yeah.
So it was an opportunity. It was a blank slate in a lot of ways. And I went in with the mindset that I'm going to compete. I'm going to learn. I'm going to help the people around me, be a good teammate, and, see where it lands me. And it
Yeah.
ended up in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you were Drew Brees' favorite target for many years. It was really, really impressive to watch. And I know, again, I don't know, I'm not plugged into the NFL or anything like that, but just from the outside, a lot of the wide receivers in particular tend to be pretty flashy, pretty, we'll say divas. But you just always seem to carry yourself in such a humble yet confident way. Clearly, you were confident to create such an impact. And so talk to us about humility and what that was, how that played into your approach.
Yeah, it was huge for me. I mean, it was a little bit easier in that, in every stage and in every transition in my life. Like I was never the most heralded, opportunity. I wasn't the top prospect coming out of high school. That's how you end up at Hofstra. Clearly wasn't a top draft pick. That's how you become a seventh round pick. So for me, it was never about the flash. It was always about, I have to put in this work, and I have to prepare at a level, um, at such a high level, that I get an opportunity to overcome my situation.
Hmm.
That was always my mentality.
Hmm.
So it was never really about flash. It was always about production.
Hmm.
And if you can produce at a high level and figure out how to produce again at a high level, even when circumstances change,
Yeah.
you can sustain success.
No, I
And
love that.
that's my mentality. You can't take the next rep for granted. You can't take the next year for granted,
Hmm.
because I'd already been through that.
Right, right.
So it was always about being in the moment, staying in the moment. What is the win that I can extract from this moment? Whether it's a play, it's a quarter, it's a season, a game. What's the win I can extract from this moment? Wonderful. Take the insights, figure out the next moment. How do I win this next moment? That was always my mentality. And that's
Yeah.
kind of how I put together 10 years
Hmm.
of football that maybe look different from age 22 to age 32, but the
Hmm.
production thing.
Right, right. Yeah, and then you develop the trust from one of the best quarterbacks ever. And I remember Drew Brees, talking about just not always focusing on the outcome, but focusing on the process and the moment, and just doing the right thing in the moment, and the rest will take care of itself. Briefly, what was it like playing with Drew Brees?
Man, it was a partnership. That's the best way to explain it. We had just so much time on task with. He was a perfectionist in the same
Yeah.
way I was a perfectionist.
Hmm.
And we would go through practice, we would go through film, go through processes, and it wasn't a good rep until we saw it the same. Like, I
Mm.
could see the game through his eyes, and he had to know exactly what I was seeing and read my body language. So it was a true partnership for 10 years. And you just don't get many opportunities to work at with somebody that plays at such a high level, that thinks and sees the game at such a high level, and they just kind of become a thinking partner. So it was an amazing 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, just again from the outside, the synergy and the chemistry you guys displayed were phenomenal. Um, and so, talk to us about, so I guess age 32 is when you ended up, ending your NFL career. What was that like? How did that happen? How did you Were you in control of that, or what was the decision making process there?
No, you're never in control of that. But no, I finished my 10th year, and that was the first year that I ended the season feeling like I can't play at the level that I want to play at. Like
Hmm.
you, as a competitor, you have this vision for
Yeah.
you, and that was the first year that I couldn't get to my own vision for myself.
Hmm.
That's kind of when I knew I'd always told myself when I can't play at the level of excellence that I want to play at, then I need to walk away.
Yeah.
So I kind of came out of my 10th year knowing that it was it for me. And then I got a call. I'm literally laying in the bed right around the combine time in February. I
Hmm.
got a call that confirmed it. Uh,
Okay.
said the Saints
Gotcha.
were going a different direction, and I appreciated them for thanked them for the opportunity, and
Hmm.
kept it moving and went on with my day because I kind
Gotcha.
of coming.
You knew it was coming. But I mean, you probably could have, tried to play for another team, get signed elsewhere, right?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, so I got released by the Saints.
Hmm.
The day or two later, my agent calls me. He's got a
Hmm.
couple teams that had called him that were interested, and I started listening to the offers for a minute, and I quickly just told him, look, I'm done. Like I don't care
Yeah.
who calls you.
When you know, right?
Yeah, I'm not gonna pick up my family and go to another city, and like I'm done. It's time to turn the page. So I don't know who was interested after I told him don't call me
Mm,
again.
right. Gotcha. Okay, so during the 10 years that you were playing in the NFL, were you working on the next phase of your life, or what were your thoughts as to your post NFL career?
Yeah, I was actively building it as I was playing.
Hmm.
I started maybe in my fourth year, angel investing, and I was really quickly I was able to kind of draw a parallel between my life as an athlete and the life of a startup entrepreneur.
Okay.
Uh, it was very much the same journey. You have this vision, the odds are stacked against you, and you have to bet on you, and you have to believe in you before anyone else will.
Mm, sure.
And when I was able to connect those dots, it opened up entrepreneurship and venture capital to me mentally in a way that it just felt very like I was at home. And from that moment on, I knew I was an entrepreneur, and I
Mm.
just kind of continued to experiment and almost like prototype my way through um, figuring out what it is that I was good at, what it is that I was interested in.
Hmm.
Um, as they say, I kissed a lot of frogs early days, but you kind of have to figure out the
Yeah.
things you don't want to do and the things that you're not passionate about
Right.
before you really hone in and focus on the things that should
Sure.
be time and attention.
Yeah, and that's you're speaking about during your NFL career, you were testing different things, right? So you
Yep.
didn't wait till you were done. Hey, I should probably test some things and see what I like or what I'm good at. I love that. You're planning ahead, you're thinking long term, but then you're still coming back to the moment and the present when you're playing football and training for football. It's not like you were, not present, but you're also planning ahead and thinking, I'm not going to be playing football forever. So, and like you mentioned, what you're good at, just we're all unique and we all have the, individual talent, and nobody is like you or me and or the listener. And so I think that's critical to be introspective and figure out what drives you, what are you passionate about, what are you good at, how can you serve others.
Yep.
But also, like you mentioned, it's trial and error. You got to test things and try things. So, what were some of the things that you tried during your NFL career that maybe didn't pan out?
Man, there were so many of them. No,
Gotcha.
so investments are an easy one. I mean, if you're hitting on half of your investments, especially like in the private and the venture space, like
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
you get into that game and you expect to fail, but you expect the wins to kind of overtake the failures.
Right.
But for me, it was really the one opportunity that changed everything for me was I ended up in a position where I was owning and operating an indoor football team.
Okay.
Uh,
Nice.
I
What
did
team
that.
was that?
It was a lower level team. It was in my hometown called the Harrisburg Stampede.
Okay.
So I
Wait,
did
this
that
is
for
Harrisburg, Pennsylvania?
Harrisburg, PA.
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm in the Baltimore area and,
Okay, yeah.
familiar
Yes,
with
we had
Harrisburg.
we had a team, the Baltimore Mariners. We played down around you guys.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Nice. Mariner
but yeah,
band.
I got into that business. I obviously knew the sports angle. Wanted to figure out the front office and figure out the operations of the business. So
Hmm.
I got in there and I ran that team for 3 years.
Okay.
Soup to nuts, general manager. I intentionally did everything except the roster decisions. so business ops, game operations, marketing, media, all
Hmm.
everything except pick the team and coach the team. That was kind of what I intentionally took
And
on.
why'd you avoid doing that? The-
Because I had a coach that I knew
mhm.
that I knew he would do a good job. He had his
Gotcha.
staff. He was a successful coach
Hmm.
already,
Hmm.
and I wanted him to know that he had autonomy to do what he needed to do
Yeah,
without this shadow kind of just over him
right.
all.
Understood. That
And,
makes sense.
and for me it was I needed the focus to figure out the things the unknown unknowns that I was walking
Hmm.
in.
Yeah. And what years was that?
So this was 2011 through 2012 through 2014.
Gotcha. And what were one or two takeaways from that experience?
Man, for me it was my first real experience in business leadership,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
drastically different than sports leadership. And for me, I'm somebody that I'm kind of the lead by example type of person. I'm
Hmm.
not I'm not I'm not a really vocal leader. I'm not a really high
Yeah.
strung leader.
Right.
So to be in that position where I had to be vocal, I had
Yeah.
to be upfront. I couldn't just hide behind production. I had to show up and lead people.
Yeah.
It was a really good, at that point in my life, I'm like 26, 27. That was
Hmm.
just a really good lesson for me to learn and a really good experience that I kind of put in my back pocket and carried with me.
Hmm.
And that I started to learn how I could lead in a way that was authentic to who I was,
Hmm.
but it also gave the team members what they needed so that they could be successful. So
Sure.
it's different than preparing and going out and running a route and winning a route. You
Right.
can still lead all day, but
Yeah.
leading a team kind of requires different muscles, and it
Yeah.
gave me a chance to start building those muscles.
It makes sense. And I've in certain points I've like I was in the military. I was kind of pushed into certain positions where I'm like you. I'm not you know super necessarily comfortable. Maybe you are now, but you know I'm not that rah guy that's it's cheering in front of thousands of people, pumping everybody up. I'm more of a lead by example kind of person, but got pushed into certain positions that were outside of my comfort zone. But I think that builds trust that the people you're leading tend to, see like, maybe you're learning as well. Like you said, a lifelong learner, and you're comfortable pushing yourself and stepping outside of your comfort zone. And maybe you don't do that same position forever, but there's a growth opportunity there. Um, but I do think, yeah, it's different in business versus sports, but there are so many principles from team sports in particular that lead that apply in business and entrepreneurship. Can you mention just kind of one or two that you think are kind of crossover well?
Yeah, I mean the one that I have really hung my hat on that most people don't connect is strategy.
Okay. How
A lot
so?
of people get into the soft skills and the leadership and team building and all of those things, and they're important.
Hmm.
Me, it's been strategy.
Okay.
Particularly the position that I played, it was one that you literally had to take the best the best abilities of yourself and your offensive unit,
Hmm.
compare and contrast against the best of the defensive unit, and put together a game plan to go out and execute it. And that game plan had the same core principles every week, but the execution of it was different based on the matchup, right?
Got it. Yeah.
That's at a macro level. At a micro level, I'm doing the same exact thing in my position, right? I know who I am as a 6'4", 225-pound receiver.
Hmm.
I know what my skill set is. I got to figure out who is the defender that I'm going against and what is the scheme that he's playing within,
Hmm.
and
That's
starting to
pretty cool.
figure out how to win, not just against that opponent, but against that defense, and then again against that defense in certain situations. Just figuring out how to think strategically, and that game theory
Hmm.
is something that I've taken literally, transferred wholesale into the way that I think about, the way that I build, and the way that I operate businesses.
Love that. So, is there more, kind of a tactical example you can give of that in recent years where that's the strategy approach has really applied to your business operations?
Yeah, I mean it's let me think through one. So ultimately, like, brand positioning and strategic positioning at the end of the day is
Hmm.
you get into an industry. So we're and we'll probably touch on this
Hmm.
later.
Yeah.
The current firm that I'm running, Champion Venture Partners,
Hmm.
we're a sports private equity firm.
Hmm.
But knowing who our team is, knowing the skill sets of our team, we're more operators than investors. Knowing the access that we have, our version of private equity looks different than traditional private equity firms. And
Okay.
that's a function of being strategic and leading with our strengths intentionally so that we can leverage our operational capacity in the way that we bring value. It's not our value is not just opening a Rolodex and connecting you with advisors.
Hmm.
Our value add is we literally have operators that can come into your business and integrate into your business either
Hmm.
as contractors or as, fractional C-suite representatives.
Okay. That's pretty
Right.
cool.
So kind of going back to understanding who you are, what you do well, and
Yeah.
how can you deliver that to the target audience.
Yeah.
That's one tactical example of just how
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
firm.
So was that something where you built your team and then you said, "Hey, what are we good at?" Or was it like, "What? How do we want to be different from the competition? Let's go build the team," or a mix of both?
It's kind of a mix of both. Like you build out the vision, you build out the kind of the end game or the North Star,
Yeah.
and you find the people that can help you get there.
Yeah.
It's no different than building a roster. It's no different than draft day. You
Hmm.
got certain holes that you want to fill in
Right.
the term, and then you got certain picks that you want to get in
Right.
how you want to develop over time. So
Sure. Yeah, you're gonna need to know where you're going, but then as time goes on, you can adjust that a little bit. You don't know how you're going to get there, of course, but also you can at times pivot and maybe change the North Star a little bit. Um, so, talk to us in more detail about Champion Venture Partners and what you all are up to.
yeah, so Champion Venture Partners, like I mentioned, we're a private equity firm. We focus on what we call the value chain of sports. So most of the conversations around sports investment now are teams. NFL, NBA, MLB, MLS, the big five leagues.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
what we know is that there is a value chain that kind of makes even those teams and those leagues operate. It makes them tick,
Okay.
right? So we wanted to build a firm that really looked at the components and the picks and shovels of the sports business and put them all into a portfolio alongside teams and clubs. So everything from sports tech to real estate and hospitality to sports medicine, to media, all of the picks and shovels that make sports what it is.
Hmm.
So that's really our investment thesis. That's what we invest in.
Okay. So, for the lay person who may not be totally familiar with what that all means, is there a particular example, either a true case study or even a sort of fake case study going forward, where you can say this is how we've helped a business, a sports team, or something like that?
Yeah, so I'll give you a live example. So we've had several conversations with sports clubs
Hmm.
that are um obviously open to investment in the club and ownership at the club level,
Hmm.
but they also have real estate projects. They have stadium projects, stadium upgrades that they want to get into.
Okay.
So that's where our entire ecosystem play. We can come in and invest in the team, but we can also bring some different technology integrations and technology platforms that they can integrate into their stadium upgrades, whether
Okay.
it be around ticketing, maybe it's around fan engagement. There might be a sports medicine technology or sports medicine partnership or opportunity that we can bring into the club.
Hmm.
Most clubs
Nice.
at this day and age are looking beyond just the team in the stadium. You're seeing a lot of real estate plays, a lot of hospitality plays.
Hmm.
Um, one kind of North Star that we always point to is the Battery down in Atlanta,
Okay.
right? So you got the Braves organization,
Yeah.
you've got the whole sporting aspect, but you've got basically this whole smart city that's owned by the Braves organization,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
All of the retail there, all of the hospitality there, all of the data that's generated there, the parking, all of that becomes part of this club operation and this club this club portfolio.
Okay. Yep.
So that is a live example of how we want to structure our portfolio.
Nice. And what does your team look like right now?
So our team is pretty, like I said, it's a pretty diverse group.
Hmm.
The operators,
Yeah.
we are about, I'm counting real time in my head. We are
Yeah,
about,
no worries. Just approximate.
yeah, we're about 12 deep.
Gotcha.
We've got folks that have worked in the front offices at the league level, at the team level. We've got folks that have been that have been professional investors
Hmm.
in the real estate game. We've got
Hmm.
folks that have been practitioners within the sports medicine world.
Yeah.
Myself as a team owner, a former financial advisor,
Hmm.
so we put together a team that we feel like are one, high level people,
Sure.
high performance people,
Yep.
two, just very diverse skill sets and operators within sports that give
Gotcha.
us an edge.
Yeah, yeah. So you all are bringing both capital as well as operational expertise to a particular sports organization or a related organization to add value to that organization. And then is there like I guess, an exit point on each deal where you hopefully exit for a profit, or how does that work?
So that's the beautiful part about our strategy. We're not a traditional firm with a kind of a cap and a timeline on us. Like we're
Okay.
not a 10-year fund.
Okay. Yep.
Need to produce returns in a finite time. We're more of a permanent capital structure that allows us to come in and literally build companies that have long-term sustainability and help to build the sustainability within the companies. So there's naturally going to be exit points with some of the
Sure.
portfolio companies that we get into,
Yeah.
but it's not our mandate. And that provides us a level of flexibility to be able to, create long-term value and set up long-term partnerships
Yeah.
in a way that's a little bit different.
Yeah. And it doesn't put pressure on you to maybe rush and make poor
Yep.
decisions in the moment. So for the everyday person at home who is maybe a real estate investor or an entrepreneur, either active or passive investor, how can they get involved with what you're doing?
Yeah, so we are actually within the next within Q1 of this year, we should
Hmm.
be live on our Evergreen Fund,
Okay.
which is exciting for us because it's an opportunity to make sports investment accessible to every investor. Like I mentioned before, typically the conversations are, you know, 8 and 9 figure checks into
Hmm.
clubs, and
Yeah.
there's only a handful of people on earth with the
Right.
resources to do that.
Yeah.
But this evergreen fund that we're launching in Q1 or Q2 of this year takes those same assets and it gives every investor an opportunity to get engaged.
Nice.
But it's a blind pool investment. It's more of a passive play,
Yeah. Yeah.
but the portfolio construction is one that you'll get access to, teams and clubs all the way down through, early stage technology to where you can get a pretty wide breadth
Hmm.
of exposure into the
Yeah. Yeah.
sports world.
So the blind pool fund really means the limited partner, the passive investor, doesn't have a ton of control over what the investments, are in the fund.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you're intentionally creating a lot of diversification within the fund across different asset types, different, sports teams, and different, like you mentioned, real estate, technology, a lot of different things within the fund.
Yeah.
Um,
Just to double click on that, you're
yeah,
1,000% right with you don't have a lot of say into what gets invested in.
yeah,
Thing that's different about our fund is you do have access to um, the opportunity to liquidate
okay,
at two different parts during the year, uh,
okay,
semi-annually. Because
okay,
most
yeah,
funds, if it's a 10-year lockup, it's a 10-year lockup, and
right,
it's
right, yeah, yeah,
so
no, for sure. I run a
the liquid assets, but there are liquidity options with it.
Sure. I run a mortgage note fund, and that's one of the highlights that we like to talk about in our little niche in the real estate space. Oftentimes 3 or 4 years is kind of the minimum is your commitment period as a passive investor.
Yep.
Ours is 1 year, which is relatively liquid, compared to some other funds, and
Yeah.
it does. force us to, in some ways, purchase smaller dollar assets and make sure we have the liquidity within the fund to be able to sell things off and provide that, execute on that redemption request for each investor. But yeah, oftentimes these alternative investments are 5, 10 years, and it's like you don't know what your life, you don't know what needs maybe your kids are going to have, or you go through life events and all of a sudden you need your money back. Sounds like you all with 6 months is the actual commitment period. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so yes, with like I said, it's semi-annual those redemption
Gotcha.
periods.
Got it.
So yeah, you get in there. There's two opportunities a year to liquidate.
Awesome. So within that, what you all might invest in, you mentioned the Atlanta piece. Is there something that you personally are super interested in as far as the business, sports franchise or something like that?
Yeah, I've got my eye on a lot of these a lot of these teams and clubs in emerging leagues.
Okay.
If you look at the Big Five and what's happening there with the valuations, a lot of those are just driven by off of media rights.
Okay. Yeah.
As we're seeing the linear players get more and more competition, the CBSs and the Foxes and the ESPNs of the world, they're getting more
Hmm.
competition from the Amazons and the Netflixes of the world.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, there's bound to be other emerging leagues that benefit from the you're playing a game of musical chairs. Whoever gets left out, they got to spend those dollars and allocate those dollars somewhere.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think that some of these emerging leagues that are getting into these niche audiences, they don't
Hmm.
have the same operational overhead as some of the
Yeah.
bigger, legacy leagues. I think there's going to be some really good opportunities there.
And when you say emerging leagues, is that the same sports, major sports we're talking about, or different sports?
Could be different sports, could be similar sports.
Gotcha.
There's one live example. The women's 3-on-3 basketball league, Unrivaled.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Not an opportunity that we got a chance to get into, but just
Yeah.
looking and at what they're doing and seeing,
Hmm.
their launch has been widely successful.
Nice.
And I think those types of opportunities are
Sure.
coming. Those type of opportunities are in the pipeline,
Nice.
that we're looking for.
How about lacrosse or pickleball?
Lacrosse, pickleball, yeah, cricket is up and coming.
Okay.
I read an article today about the cornhole. Like
Oh, nice.
a lot of these
Nice.
sports are gaining traction.
Yeah, yeah. Um, all right, I got a bunch of rapid fire questions here as we start to wrap up here, Marcus. This has been great. You ready for some rapid fire questions?
We're gonna find out.
Can you share a moment in your career when you felt completely defeated and how you overcame that experience?
I don't know when I felt completely defeated. Man, I was just talking about this the other day. So there's a playoff game in 2014. We're out in Seattle playing the Seahawks. Down early in the game and figured out a way to mount a comeback and got literally down to the last drive of the game. We're down by about a touchdown. And we drew up this crazy play where I ran a route on the sideline. I caught the ball, and we had a running back that was supposed to be leaking out up the sideline all the way across the field.
Okay.
So
Hmm.
supposed to catch the ball, make sure my feet were in bounds, and throw a backward lateral all the way across the field. Um, we practiced that in our indoor facility. No wind, no
Hmm.
conditions. The thing we looked out for was it's probably 30 degree wind.
Right.
So I catch the
Yeah.
ball down, make sure my feet are in bounds. I
Hmm.
turn around to wind up, throw it across field. That sucker goes 7 yards forward.
Oh,
Game
jeez.
a game is over.
Wow.
Um,
That sucks.
so yeah,
Yeah. So,
fortunately for me, we weren't as heavy into the meme culture as we are
oh,
now.
right, right. Yeah, for sure. Okay,
But
so
yeah,
those for
that
those
was
who are unfamiliar, you can't have two forward passes on one play is basically, and then so it's a you know incomplete. The play's over and the game's over,
yep.
and it sounds like was that the end of the season too?
That was the end of the season.
Oh,
That's a
geez.
long flight from Seattle back home to New
Oh
Orleans.
man, a lot of time to think about that one.
Yep.
That sucks. Which running back was it? Do you remember?
Tavares Cadet.
Okay, I do. I remember him.
Yep. I can still see the
Um,
play in my head, unfortunately.
what's that?
I can still see the play in my
Oh
head.
yeah, he sends you memes now. No, I'm just kidding. What's something that's controversial or unconventional? You mentioned your fund is unconventional. Anything controversial, unconventional that you can highlight in your in the industry that you run in?
Um, I wouldn't call it controversial. It's something that I'm is actively on my brain just because I was in the finance world as an advisor,
Mm-hmm.
and there just doesn't seem to be within the athlete and entertainer world,
Mm-hmm.
there just doesn't seem to be a lot of alignment with
Okay.
how, you know, the typical financial advisor gets paid off fees under man assets
Yeah.
under they get
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
fee, but they're typically in, traditional stocks and bonds.
Sure.
Um, and as a younger athlete, younger entertainer, you should be in more alternative assets, but it kind of puts the advisor in a conflict in that
Yeah.
if you invest in those alternative assets, it takes away assets under management, which kind of reduces my fee. So there's
Right.
really not a lot of motivation to build a truly fiduciary relationship with a truly diverse portfolio.
Right.
And one of the things that we're kind of trying to fill that void
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
a lot of ways.
Right. Whose interests do they really have in mind, right? That's not to say all financial advisors are thieves or anything like that, but it's like, yeah, I mean, is it really based on the performance of the portfolio or the diversification or getting into alternative assets?
Yeah.
That makes sense. Um, what's one of the biggest psychological barriers you think entrepreneurs face today?
One of the biggest psychological barriers. The perception of competition.
Okay.
Um, I think it's very easy as an entrepreneur to look out and see how most how a lot of businesses are being marketed or on these online social media
Mm.
platforms.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is very easy as an entrepreneur, an early entrepreneur, to look out at everyone's highlight reels
Yeah.
and kind of defeat yourself because you're not at the stage that they look like they're at when they might not even
They
be
might
there.
not actually be there.
I think the perception of competition is one that keeps entrepreneurs on the sidelines for a little bit
Stuff.
longer.
That's a great answer. I've never heard that one. Um, so back to you personally, how has financial abundance, I'm sure you made some money in the NFL. How has financial abundance made your life better?
It's been a blessing that's given me the opportunity to create blessings. Uh,
Mm,
the ability to be able to navigate even the world that we're in now, launching CVP,
hmm.
uh, and the access to this world is really a launch pad to create access for others.
Love
And
that.
that to me is true abundance when you can take a gift or take a blessing and multiply it and offer it as an opportunity for others. That's the win for me at this point.
So good. What is a book or two that you could recommend for our listeners?
Man, one I just finished reading is Hidden Potential. I think it's by Adam Grant.
Okay.
Let me
Hmm.
go case. The Effective Executive is another one that just kind of changed my thought process on, most people are trying to get as efficient as possible, trying
Hmm.
to as many things into a day as possible.
Yeah.
That one helped me zoom out and just figure out on, how do you be effective? Like
Mm.
how do you prioritize effectiveness and then build efficiency into that? So those are two that I kind of think through and kind of have kind of integrated into my personal operating system.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe the sales of those two will take off like the book that AJ Brown was reading. I don't know. Did you see any of that?
I did, man. I did. And
Yeah,
I hope,
it's
yeah, I
crazy.
hope there's a partnership in the work somewhere.
So, it's, I know several people who have purchased that book just because of that. But um, I know we can't cover every way that you already mentioned, taking your blessings and then blessing others. What are one or two ways that you like to serve others?
I think for me, it's being a resource. Like I know that the experience that I've had are not they're not supposed to be for somebody that comes from my background.
Mm,
And in a lot of ways, the work that I'm doing and the work that I've been doing and will continue to do
hmm.
is trying to figure out how to make that pathway from where I came from easier for other people to navigate.
Love that. Um, Marques Colston, what's one question that you wish I'd asked that I haven't?
I think you knocked it out of the park, my man.
Awesome. Um, so you're going to be heading to the Super Bowl here, and anything else you want to touch on as far as your visit to New Orleans coming up?
No, I'm excited to get back down. The Super Bowl hasn't been there for a while.
Yeah.
I'm excited to get back down, kind of in a business capacity.
Hmm.
I've typically been there as the former athlete,
Right.
um, but it's going to be fun to get back down to that city in particular, with a business that we feel really good about, and with the opportunity to create opportunities for other people. So it's going to be really really cool to just to be back in the city, kind of in a different capacity.
Yeah. I'm guessing you have a couple of contacts there, and you got a
I still
place
got
to
to be.
stay. Nice. Well, this has been really good, Marcus. Thanks so much for your time. Where can our listeners find you online?
Yeah, sure. You can find Champion Venture Partners at championventurepartners.com. We're also on LinkedIn and Instagram. And then me personally, my personal website is marcuscolson.xyz. And I'm also on, I want to call it Twitter, but it's X,
Yeah.
Instagram, and LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out, and hopefully there's a way we can work together and create some value.
Awesome. You're not hard to find online at least, but this has been great. I just the lifelong learner aspect, and then just um, you know taking the blessings and blessing others, and just being in the present, I think was a big takeaway for me. Having a long-term approach, but then being in the present moment and doing your best, you know, right now, right here, where your feet are, so to speak. I think those were some of my big takeaways from this. And like I said, I was a big fan of yours over the years. So appreciate you joining us. And yeah, best of luck to you with your business ventures.
I really appreciate you having me, man.
Absolutely. And to the listener out there, thank you so much for lending us your most valuable resource, and that is your time. Thanks, everyone. Take care.